kid, I really kind of came to grips with, you know, the fact that human beings died. The Vietnam War was happening, and I didn't really understand what death meant. You know, as a 5-year-old, it's kind of hard to get your head wrapped around that. But then another thing happened. We had a lady that came and took care of us, and she died in our home. And I remember watching the paramedics take her out on a stretcher, and I would think about, you know, okay, the day I'm going to die, what happens? And it was as if, you know, I was falling into a pit, and with nothing to grab onto. My childhood was a good childhood, but then at night, every night, so I developed insomnia. You know, you grow up and you become a teenager and started drinking a lot. Ended up started doing a lot of drugs. That death idea never left me, though. And what I found is that when you did mind-altering substances and when you drank, that you didn't have to think about that. And I could go to sleep. And I didn't have to wrestle with those thoughts. And the problem was that, you know, you have to wake up the next morning and there's another day. One night where I was doing a lot of drugs, just stuck a pistol in my mouth and, you know, had rounds in the chamber, and I could still feel what the, you know, the front sight post of that pistol tasted like. And for some reason I didn't do that. Loved to play pickup basketball and shattered my knee playing basketball. So as I'm laying in bed recuperating from my knee injury, struggling with life, playing Sega golf and watching TV, I just got sick of it all. And so I just was laying there one day and I turned on the radio and I was flipping through the radio and it was Dr. Jeremiah. And he was beginning a series to study through the book of Revelation. And I was like, well, there's no way. I didn't get to listen to some guy talk about the Bible. This is just stupid, you know, I mean, come on. But for some reason, I just kept listening. And I would listen every day. And, you know, being an atheist, you know, to be listening to someone teach the Bible is a really strange thing. You know, being college educated, I needed to hear an intelligent, you know, rationalized, thoughtful point of view. And so I just kept listening and I was engaged. And every day I would tune back in. And for months I listened. And so on March 22nd, 1994, Dr. Jeremiah was preaching through those last few chapters. And I was in my car driving on Highway 18, and he says, if you're out there listening, and immediately I was like, oh, I'm out here listening. And it grabbed my attention. He said, what about you? What about the day that you're going to die? And I was like, man, yeah, that's what I've been looking for since I was 5 years old. Somebody to answer this question clearly. I had, you know, had the Jesus bumps that were all over me, and it was almost a bit as if God came into the car and said, well, son, you've been trying it your way for 28 years. You want to give me a shot? Dr. Jeremiah said, if you're driving in your car, I want you to pull over on the side of the road. And it was like, holy cow, I better do this. For the first time in my life, I talked to God, and I said, God, I don't know who you are, but I know this is true, what I've heard. I've not lived, you know, how I should have lived. I know I'm apart from you, but I need to be forgiven. I need you to save me. Came to Christ in the spring of '94 and started my first seminary class in January of '96. So went from being a youth ministry intern to a full-time youth pastor and went on into the military in 2004. The Army sent me to Fort Jackson and I became a battalion chaplain for a basic training unit. And I spent the next 28 months there, every 9 weeks, getting at least 1,000 soldiers. Coming from youth ministry, it was great. It was kind of like youth ministry with guns. It was reverse missionary work. They would come from all over the world. They would come to me. I kind of have this tainted background and this less than reputable background, and so they can look at me and go, well, you know, he knows what I'm going through, but there's something different about him now. So, you know, God has used the ministry of Turning Point, not just in my salvation, but all the way through my ministry, you know, as a resource to give to folks and an encouragement for me. I got the opportunity to meet Dr. Jeremiah through my chaplain assistant. Privilege of all privileges, got to share my testimony with him sitting on the front row. And it was one of the best moments of my life, you know, to be able to come full circle and to see the man that led me to Christ. He was just being faithful to preach God's word all those years ago, and he had no idea that for 15 years God has been taking me along this path, and God's taken me to some places where it's been dangerous as a soldier, and I have not once feared for my life, because I know that no matter what happens to me here, I know my life with God, it's held with him, it's a sure thing. It's guaranteed because of what he did, not because of what I did.